Okay, so we're good to go. I mean, if you're with me, just give a thumbs up on the comment section so that I know that we are together. Give a thumbs up, give a thumbs up. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I mean, um, again, I was just talking to somebody. I said, we just barely had a session yesterday. I be on Sunday, and then here again, it feels like, but I mean, it should be like that. Um, at the end of the day, we shouldn't be having a huge gap in between the days so that you're able to grab as much as you can as soon as possible. So if you can hear me, yeah, do a thumbs up, do a thumbs up, yeah, thank you. Okay, so last week we stopped at somewhere. um Last week we considered a few functions, and I'll just give me um give me a second here. Note sticker, notes. um okay. So last week we looked at a few things. We considered sum, we considered average, and I'll take out the mean, and I give an assignment. Well done to everybody who carried out that assignment, right? You guys are doing really great. And today we're just going to start from somewhere. Do you get? Again, before we go to the formula tab, I believe that I believe that your laptops are open and some. I mean, because today is going to be very practical, as it were. So for those who have laptops and all of that, I believe that your laptops are open, right? If your laptop has, if you have your laptop, just give me comments on the comment section so that I know how many people are using laptops and are following me. If you're following me as I am teaching, give me, let me know in the comment section so that I know how to move. Do you get? It's very critical. So again, we considered a few functions. Okay, we considered a few functions last week, and we looked at sum, we looked at average, and we did not look at mean, max, count. So I'll take this back to here. Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, so there are a few things that we did not look at in last week's meeting, but we're going to look at it as we move on, right? There are a few cleanups. I understand that, you know, and basically what we looked at last week was how that, we're able to, somebody remind me, we're able to remove duplicates. We're able to, we learned how to insert, cut and insert. Is that true? And then what was the last one we learned? I think it was, if somebody remind me there. Okay, how to freeze the top row. So there are three major things that we learned last week: how to freeze the top major row, how to cut and insert, and then how to duplicate. Does anybody have any problem with that? Of course, the live session is there. Let's do it to like, and okay. So of course the live session is there. So if you have issues with that, exactly sorting. Okay, sorting. Yeah, we also learned how to sort. Using the toolbar. So here, I know some of you are wondering why is the interface looking like that. I'm using Google Sheet today. I told you guys on the group that I have transitioned from Excel to Google Sheets. We'll go back to, I'll be doubling between Excel and Google Sheets, right? But for today's lecture, because I've asked you guys to move the data to Google Sheets, we are going to use Google Sheets today, right? So if your Google Sheets is open, or whether you're working from Excel is fine, right? And this is also because I'm not using two systems today. One of my laptop is down, so I needed to use one. So I'm actually dividing my screen right away. So let's get into it. We looked at sorting, we looked at how to freeze the top row, looked at how to duplicate, and we also looked at how to cut and insert. There are three other functions that I will show you guys before we get into the formula. Because remember, I told you guys that all of these are, what it takes to get ready for data analytics. Because what we did last week was to prepare us for data analytics, as it were. Do you get? So all of that is just for preparation. The process of filtering, looking for duplicates and all of that is just trying to get the data ready to be analyzed, right? There are three other things that I'm going to add to that, that are also very critical. I had to manage time last week, so I jumped a few talk about the basic, as it were. Do you get? So there are a few things that I actually missed out, and which is one of them is okay. Before we get into it, from LinkedIn really, and it defines the whole ideology of what data analytics is. I know some of you. I don't get to say it before we go ahead. Some of you just feel like, okay, it's just a holy grail. You just get it and then you get remote jobs and then you're just moving, right? It is not as simple as that, even though it is a game of value. Do you get? And so what we are trying to do now is something that I have done. Okay, it's something that I have done over time. Please like if you've not liked the video, please go ahead and like, so that the promotion can go fast and we can have more people on the call, even people who are not on the group. I realize that every time we like, more people usually used to, we used to have more influx of people and all of that. So do well to like. It's very important, you know. Okay, so um, so basically, right, it is very, very, very again, what is even very important is the fact that you should not put your mindset in the fact that, okay, you're going to learn data analytics and then probably after then you're going to land a remote job that's going to pay you in thousands and all of that. If that happens, that's fine. Of course, you're not going to, but again, that's a possibility that is very, very possible, right? That is a very good possibility. That is very, very possible. But at the end of the day, what you should be focusing on is how to even build value, even with small businesses, as it were. If you have value with small businesses, right, it makes you grow faster, because what that happens is that it helps you to build your portfolio faster and all. So you look at small businesses, you find solution, and you find what is the issue, and then you get the data, you do the analysis for them, and it just keeps you going. So that's by the way. So another thing we're going to look at in our data, because we looked at, okay, and I'll just rephrase a little bit before we move. So I said that to freeze the top row, which was the first thing we looked at in our previous session, is how you're going to do that is that you're going to highlight the whole row from, you know, from from the beginning, right? If it is possible, you highlight the one row. So the difference between here, Excel and Google Sheets is that here in Excel, in Google Sheets, you might not necessarily have to highlight the whole row, right? If you come to view and you come to freeze, for example, so it just has the option here. It says, you know, one row, no row, one row, two rows, up to row two. So up to row two, because I have highlighted up to row two. So for example, if I highlight row six, for example, and I go back there, it's going to show me up to row six. So I'm ready to freeze it up to row six. But basically, I just want to freeze the first row so that I can see what's going on, beneath my data. And that was the first thing we looked at in our previous session. The second thing we looked at is how to remove duplicates, which we also did in Excel. I mean, if you don't quite understand that, maybe you can rewatch the other video, as it were. The third thing we looked at was how um, to sort data. So, I mean, if we consider that if you're able to put your for some of you who are using Google Sheets, maybe I need to also explain a little bit. So, of course, at the top row here, I told you guys whether it's Excel you're using whether it's Google Sheet you are using, everything around this whole space becomes your toolbar, right? This is like your mechanic workshop. This is where you are literally working from. Do you get? This is where you have all your tools, all your working tools. So if you look at it, you see that everything is just around here. So I usually used to like Google Sheet because it's not complicated. Everything is just here. But however, everything we have in Excel is also here. So you look at file, we look at edit. No, so if I click on edit, you see what's there for edit. If I click on insert, it just brings out everything for insert. If I clicked on format, it brings out everything here. Maybe we might have a class where I will have to explain some of these functions one by one by one by one by one, right? For the purpose of those who really do not understand. So, I mean, in Excel, you click, it comes out, but here you have to click, and then you see this drop down here. The drop down will come out this way, and then you look for the function that you're looking for, right? So, but again, here as it were, right, is your home tab. And this home tab literally contains almost everything that you need to work, as it were, right? So if I was going to put a filter here, like I said, we talked about sorting. So I'll put a sorting here. So you see there's something that looks like a filter on my home tab. You just see it up here like a filter. So if I click on it, it automatically puts these boxes just as it is in Excel. Do you understand? The only thing I need to do is to click on the box and filter whatever information I need to filter out, right? We looked at that and we're able to filter our file properly. The third thing we looked at was how to cut and paste. I know everybody already did that, and I believe that everybody already understands how to do that. Am I correct? So the next thing that we're going to look at today is that one of the things that is also very critical in data analytics is the find function. But again, I would probably not prefer. I would probably prefer to just take you guys on the formulas, and let's round up this session. And maybe I can do that at the end of the. But that is not so necessary. The find and replace function, right? But it's something that we can look at later, after this class. Okay. Last session we were able to calculate the sum function. We were able to calculate the average. We were able to calculate. Okay, for some of you, you went back and did the assignment. Well done to everyone who did the assignment and did it well. I took my time to go through all of the drives, and I saw that you guys are wonderful. Well done, well done, well done. Okay, so I mean, just so that I'm not rushing, it is not our culture to rush. That's why I've also extended the classes to 3 weeks so that we can have more time to look at some of these issues and all of that. I will schedule a class where I will take you guys back a little bit to further explain some of these functions in Google Drive and all, and in Excel. So again, we looked at the other day how does to calculate sum function, you start with an equals to. I know some of you, please don't ever forget that to start any formula in Excel or Google Sheets, you have to start with an equals to, right? And to, how do I call it? To start after an equal to, you call in the formula and then you start with a bracket. The brackets always mean that you're ready to move. Do you understand? So equals to is that okay, you're giving Excel a prompt. For some of you who have an idea in coding, you're giving a prompt that I want to do a formula. Do you get? And by the time you bring out the name of the formula you're looking for, the next thing that Excel wants to see is that you want to do a bracket. The bracket means that I have seen the exact function that I'm looking for, so I'm ready to fly. That's what you're telling Excel. So we established that fact in our previous lecture, right? And here today, we're going to go further from here. Do you understand? I'm not going to take you guys back, and we're going to go further from here. So in terms of the data cleaning, there are four other functions that I would like to show you guys, but I'd like to show you guys those functions when I'm using my Excel. So maybe in the next class, I'll brush through it and then before we move. So I'm using my Google Sheet because I'm not able to, share my Excel screen because I'm using one laptop today. So let's move. So we were able to get our sum function. We said that we agreed that, you know, um, okay, I'll today we will start with the mean, max, counts. We looked at the counter, looked at the auto sum, and then we look at the auto reference. And then at the end of the class, I'll tell you guys what is data positioning, how to position your data. Because at the end of the day, this is not where we are supposed to do this calculation, as it were. If you're already doing your calculation at the bottom of your data, it means that you're doing a very rough work. Do you get? You're doing a very, very rough work, and that is not for a data analyst, right? So we're just doing it. I'm just trying to show you guys different examples and all of that. But meanwhile, this is not where our data should be. At the end of the day, I'll show you guys where it is appropriate to keep your data, where it is, where it is better to leave your data, and not at the bottom of your raw data. This is very, very messy. You don't do that. um, okay, now I told you guys that in data analysis there are rules and regulations, and these are some of the rules that you have to follow, to avoid a lot of errors in the future and all of that. So we looked at the sum, we looked at the average, and then today we are going to look at the mean, max. I understand that some people already did this, but I'm going to do it again for the benefit of those who did not get it. So to calculate our mean, remember we said we are going to start with an equals to, and then we open the bracket, and the next, okay, equals to mean, we open the bracket, and then, so if you notice something, there's something you have to notice here. If you notice something, as soon as I open my bracket, you see that Google Sheets automatically selected all the columns here. If you notice that, you see that there's this dot line on the column and all of that. That's the power of Google Sheets, right? Excel will not do that, but because this is a network based spreadsheet, there are some things that are just automatic, right? If I don't want to take my time and start doing it like that, as soon as I inserted the formula, he already did it for me. I could just press enter, and I already finished my calculation. Because all of that is just helping you to manage time. Because when you get into an organization and you're working with a large volume of data, remember, as a data analyst, you are the customer service in the organization. So people reach out to you. You're literally working for everybody. I used to say that a data analyst does not have a boss, right? I don't care whether you're doing a consultancy work and all of that. As a data analyst, you report to literally everybody. You're a customer service. So, you can't afford to hold people to ransom because you're just, trying to copy and all of that. If you understand some of these small, small shortcuts, it can help you go a long way. So again, because I calculated my mean here, and I was not going to continue doing for quantity and for unit price, right? What I will do is to put my cursor at the bottom of the, you know, of the cell, and then I'll drag it to the right hand side. If I drag it, it automatically fills for the three rows. We established that, right? You don't have to be writing formulas up and down every time. So just focus on one. And that was why we moved. Remember, we moved our quantity and price from here. We moved it from here and came to the where we have the age to allow for flexibility. Do you understand? So in the events that we want to copy paste, I have 16 people on the call and only 8 people have liked the stream. Please go ahead and like the stream. It's very important so that we can go viral and all of that. We need to have more people on the call, right, to learn with us. Thank you. Okay, so we're also going to look at the max function. I mean, it's literally the same thing, but when I get to the counts, I will explain further. So the max function equals to max, we open brackets, and then we do the same thing, right? We take it all the way up, right? I'm just doing I need everybody to understand this. There are better ways to do it. But as we proceed, before we learn the better ways, it's better that we understand the basics for why the shortcuts are there, right? So we don't jump the gun. I don't want us to jump the gun. So I do the same thing. So and then you remember we said every time you're done with one column, you just drag it to the next column and then it just automatically fills, for the next column. For example, I could drag it to the end of the page, right? If I had several other data, whatever here, so it's just going to fill in. and give me the result. Do you understand? So, but I'm not looking for anything there really. So I come to the count function, the same thing. And I will just do a little bit of explanation here between the count and the counter, right? The count, so for example, equals to count, I open bracket open, and then of course we take on the same thing again to the top, and then we take it down, right? And we drag it to the right. It's the same process all the way. Sorry, I just made an error there. Okay, the same process all the way. Okay, so here we have a counter, right? Now, you see that we have a count. The count is count. So I will explain each of these formulas when I'm done putting in, all of this, just so that because I don't want you to just okay. Well, some people now you just do. They say we should do equals to count open brackets. I'm done. You know, I don't want it to be like that. It should not be like you. I don't want you to feel like you know how to do it, but I want you to feel like you understand the formula. I want you to know the why behind the formula. That's what I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to drive into you guys. So it shouldn't just be like you know how to do equals to you do count and then you open brackets and then it just works and then you are feeling like a guru, like a data analyst. There's more to it. So you need to be able to explain. So if I tell you to explain to me what the meaning of your formula, you should be able to tell me how you came about the formula. You know, what everything about the formula. Do you get? So you need to pay attention to the why. Why is the For example, I explained to you guys how that to is is a prompt. Every time you do an equals to, it means that you are telling Excel that I want to do a formula. Every time you type an equals to is the beginning of every formula, right? Equals to is the light in the tunnel. Do you understand that? It's not at the end of the tunnel, it's at the beginning of the tunnel. What is at the end of the tunnel is bracket close. So at the beginning of the tunnel is an equals to. At the end of the tunnel is a bracket close. Am I making sense? Are you guys getting me? Please, if you hear me, let me just do a comment. I need to, let me be sure that you guys are understanding me. You know. So equals to is at the beginning of the tunnel and a bracket close is at the end of the tunnel. So every time you're beginning a formula, you start with an equals to. I know I am repeating these things over and over again because I want it to get into your head. And every time you're closing a formula, you finish with a bracket. You begin a formula with equals to. The equals to basically is to call in the function. So for example, I want to do a sum. Equals to helps me to call in the function. If I just go to the Excel and go and type sum, do you know what Excel will interpret it as? It will interpret it as a text. But when you do an equals to, Excel will interpret that as a number, as a value. It means that you're able to calculate something, right? So when you do an equals to, it helps you to select the function exactly you're looking for. After you find the function, for example, the function we are going to look at is count. It's called a function. Do you get? So when you find the function, you begin the formula with a bracket open and end the formula with a bracket close. You end every formula with a bracket close. You begin every formula with a bracket open after you find the function with an equals to. Does that make sense now? I'm just trying to find several ways that you can really understand this. So what we're going to do with counting is that the difference between count and counting is that count values. Count is helping us to count the values. Count does not count alphabets. Counter counts alphabets. Counts value. So when you have to, for example, I have this column D now. We have this column D now. It contains both male and female. I want to know the total number of male and female in column D, right? If I apply, for example, now, if I apply a count there equals to count, if I apply a count on this alphabet, right? I'll take it to the top. If I apply a count on this alphabet, this is quite long. Okay, I'll just do it. Okay. If I apply a count on this alphabet and I click enter, you notice what? It gives me zero, zero, right? So this is counting all of this. But this particular one I did that is referencing this column D. When I dragged it, that's when absolute reference will come in. Because I dragged it, this one is now referencing numbers. So, but this particular one I did, right, is returning zero. Zero, why? Zero because this is not a number. You can't use count to be counting number, right? If I want to count numbers, I'll use the COUNTA function. So I'll return my count to where it was, for example. So I'll do a control Z, back. Okay, they are also back tonight. Network, no free meal. Are you guys having network issues, guys? Can you guys hear me? I don't know. Beatrice is complaining for net. Bernice is complaining for network. Jeremiah, Julie, how's your side? I don't know. Uh, Good news. Are you also having network issues? You fine? I hope you guys can hear me clearly. I understand the network is so bad today. I actually struggled to join the live stream. So again, how many of you can really hear me? Because I also realize that as I'm speaking, it takes a lot of time for people to reply. So it means that you guys are getting the feedback late. If you guys can hear me, speak. I mean, just put a, I need to hear from you. If I'm not getting the response, I can't flow. Do you get? The network is bad, right? Good news. Okay, Onyemeku can, network is bad. Okay, you can hear me clearly. You can hear me clearly. Okay. Aisha can hear me. Okay. Okay, Bernice, I think it's your network. You need to maybe change to something else, probably. Okay. Okay. But I hope that I'm making sense, really. Are you guys understanding me? Or am I too fast? I need to also get feedbacks and all of that. I understand. I see that people are just fluctuating on the call and going out, and I also understand that that's because of network issues. Okay, so I was trying to give the differences between count and county. Okay, okay. So the good thing is that the call is recorded. Do you understand? So at the end of the call, you can afford to rewatch it, right? You can afford to rewatch it. You know that our calls are usually very okay. Thank you, Daniel. you know the lessons are usually very broad and very, that's why I try to make it very very, so that if you have to go and rewatch it, you wouldn't need me to understand what you're watching. Do you guys? So um okay, yeah, so that if you're going back to rewatch it, you can understand it clearly, even if I'm not there. Do you understand? That was, I'm taking my time to repeat some things over and over and over again. So I was speaking to the counter and the county. So I'll return my count function to where we were, for example, right? Okay, I'll return my count function to where we were. Sorry. Okay, so now that we have the county, I was not going to use the county to count the numbers. The county will only help me. So if I have a set of data that does not have numbers, for example, I just have a set of data here, right? Maybe that just speaks to gender, another thing, and there are no numbers there. And I'm told to find out how many gender, how many of gender do we have? What's the count of the total data, for example, right? So if there are no numbers in that data, the only way that you count what you have in Excel is that you use the COUNTA function, because the COUNTA function counts alphabet, but the count function only counts numbers. So if I do equals to, it's the same thing, COUNTA, right? I was going to count only, for example, where we have alphabets to be able to determine what we have on this sheet. Do you understand? So I'm not going to drag it, because if I drag it, hmm, see, if I drag it, you realize that I was counting values. So I will explain that. I'm coming to that. So for auto sum, AutoSum is a very powerful function, but I'm not going to go to AutoSum because, so for example, AutoSum just helps you to count without, how do I call it? It just helps you to sum without having to type the sum function. Do you understand? If it's in Excel now, I'll just click an auto sum and it just sums everything at once. But I don't want to teach you guys any form of automation now. I want you guys to understand everything about. I want you guys to get used to doing it yourself before we start talking about the ones that are automatic and the ones that are not automatic. Believe me, everything we are doing here is there's a quite a better way of doing it, but we have to start from somewhere. Do you understand? Okay, so I'm going to speak to absolute reference. Absolute reference is not, how do I call it? Absolute reference is not is not a formula. Do you understand? Absolute reference is a function, right? It's something that helps you to hold formulas together, right? Absolute reference is what helps you to lock up cells. We use when we want to lock up cells, right? We use absolute reference. Remember, we said in our first class that a cell is like African prison, is like Kuje prison, right? So, because it is a prison, in order to ensure that our captives don't get away from the prison break, do you understand? The only way that we are going to the padlock to the prison actually is absolute reference. We use absolute reference to lock cells together. So if I have a formula, we're going to go to that. But before I introduce the absolute reference, we are just basically going to move our data away from here first before I do that, right? So, but just to do a recap, the sum function helps you to sum data. For example, I'll explain what this data is. We have age, we have quantity, we have unit price. I think that if I explain what the data is, it will also help you to really understand what the functions are doing, right? So, because for some of you, you just went and put mean, but you don't understand what mean is. You just went and put max, you don't understand what max is. So, I'll just explain it a little bit. So, I'll just explain this a little bit. The sum function, right? What the sum function has done is that it's helping us to sum the total number of age. If I ask you now, I said, what's the total number of age? Or what's the total quantity, you know, of stock we have on this data now? It is a sum function. Sum function just helps you to get the total for what you have. So if I ask you, what is the total unit price in the data set that we have? The first thing that should enter your mind is the sum function, right? You're going to sum to find out what is the total number of each, what is the total number of quantity, what is the total unit price we have in this data, right? If I ask you, I said, out of the data that we have in terms of age, what is the average age? Okay, for some of you who don't understand average, average is a middle ground. So it means that at the end of the day, we probably have some people at the age of 100, some people at the age of 90. We also have some people at the age of 80. We have people at the age of 10. We have people at the age of 20, 30, 40. So what an average function does is that it gives us an average of whether what is down. So it gives us a balance of what is down and what is up. Do you understand? So what is down and what is up, an average function just puts everything together and just gives us an average. So regardless of whether we have people at 18, we have people at 10, we have people at 20, we have people at 100, on the average, yeah, we have people, everything comes down to 38. Do you get? So average is okay. If I ask you what's the average age of boys and girls in this data, right? What's the average age of male? Because we have a male and female, we have a gender column here. So this gender column, this number now speaks to the gender column. So if I was going to ask you as an employee, I said, what is the average age for male and female in this data set, right? You're going to use the average function to be able to get that. It just gives you an average. If I ask you what the average quantity that we have bought during the period, that's about 5.6. right? That means on the average, we are buying 5.6. Every time we go out to go and buy 5.6 approximately. So we are literally buying 6 items every time we go out to make stock, to stock in. Do you understand? And then at what unit price? So for example, we are saying that averagely each of the stock that we buy cost us about 222 naira point 44. So we are buying about 6 items at an average 222 naira point 44. Do you see how data analysis is very? So what I'm doing now is data analysis. Remember what I told you guys, that I'm not just going to teach you guys how to do functions and all of that, because this, amidst all of the functions, what you need, right, the most is a presentation skills to be able to speak to the data that you have generated. Do you get? And part of what we are going to do to round up this class is that I'm going to have personal sessions with people, probably, or maybe I could even do a general whatever and schedule days for people to come and present. And maybe, you present to us, because when we are done building all these projects, you are going to present the projects to me according to what you have done. You are going to tell me what you have done and explain everything. And I'm going to ask you questions, I'm just going to ask you random questions. And you're going to be able to defend everything that you have done. So don't just follow me and just be doing the formulas. If you don't understand this, raise your hand, and all of that. Make sure that you understand what I'm doing. Right. So the mean function, what does the mean function do? The mean gives us the lowest number in the data set, right? So we are saying that the lowest number, the lowest age here is 18. We have, we have people at 26 years, 37 years, and all of that. So I want to know which is the least of the age, right, in the data set is the main function. I want to know who is the least. So 18 is the least age. So if I click on filter now, for example, you see that 18, we have 18, 19, 20, 22, 23. We have it up to about, you know, 500. Put in 500 years, right? So the least is 18. That is what our formula has done here. It just basically just gave us 18 here. And what is the list of the items that we buy is 1. And what is the list price is 2. 2 naira. Do you understand? That's the lowest price of item that we have bought. That's what it means. And then the max function also gives us the highest on the table. Do you understand? So as much as the mean is giving us, mean is minimum. So don't get carried away with the short function. So mean is minimum. Max is maximum. So I'm saying that what is the minimum and what is the maximum. So that's just a short form, as it were. So if I was looking for the highest age in the data set, I would take on I'll use max to get the highest age in the data set. If I also going to look at, okay, what is the highest item that we have bought in one market? So this is counting for, in a particular market, we bought up to 10, and that's the highest that we have bought. We have never bought up to 11 before, right? And in terms of unit price, the highest unit price that we have paid for something is about 850 naira. Meanwhile, the minimum is about 2 naira. So we've not spent more than 850 naira for any item before. We have only spent highest 850. And of course, if you have this kind of data now as a salesperson, it can really, really inform your decisions. The next thing I want to do is now find out which item exactly is costing 850 naira. And why are we buying it the way we are, where we're, and why are we buying it in the first place, and how regular has the sales has the purchase been, you know so these are some of the things that will really inform your decisions as a business person. The next thing that we look at is the count function. What the count function does is that the count function just basically counts. So there's a difference between the count and the sum. Remember I told you the sum is summing all the values. So for example, now if I take on the first three here, 26, 28, and 31. Sum is summing 31 plus 28 plus 26. That's what sum is doing, right? But the count is saying these 26 and 28 and 31 is 3. I'm explaining that for some people who do not understand mathematics and all of that. So if I say 26, 28, 20. 31. If I do the count function, count is counting it as 1, 2, 3. Do you understand? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's just counting how many items are in this data set. But the sum function is plusing it. Some function will now come and say 26 plus 28 plus 31 plus 36 plus 27 plus 51 plus 31 and give us a sum total. But count will not do that. Count will just count how many items. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Depending on how many rows. I'm sorry. Is it? Yeah. Depending on how many columns, how many cells we have, right? Does that make sense, guys? Do you understand up to this point? Let me know if you understand up to this point. The next thing I'm going to speak to is a cell reference. The cell referencing, sir, please, how did you get the county? Okay, Stanley, I see that the county, right? The same way you got the count is the same way you get the county. But the difference between the count and the county is that the count only counts values, but the county only counts alphabets. Do you understand that? So the count, for example, right? In Excel, the counting will not count alphabets, but I think in Google Drive it does count. Right. So, but basically, if I use the count function to count, so let's say that this is our data now. Eh? I will undo it, guys. I will do it. Just pardon me. So let's say that I delete this whole stuff that we have here. So we don't have number at all in this data set. We just have ID, we have other dates, we have customer, we have gender, we have city, we have region, we have you know a discount. I'm going to hide the discount. So we just have this data like this. Sorry, I'm going to hide it. So, we just have this data like this without numbers. And somebody is saying, what is the total number of data? Well, okay, how many do we? So this data set now, how many is it? Right? What I'm going to do, for example, now, if somebody asks me how many data set do we have, if I do a count, let's say I want to count it now, count, and I take on it to the end and I click enter, you see that it's returning zero. That's because the count does not have the ability to count alphabets. The count only has the ability to count how do I call it, values. Do you get? So because it is alphabets all the way, what I'm going to do is to use the count a. The extra a, right, is what is telling Excel that is not value. I want to count alphabets. Do you get? So if I do the count a and I take on it the same way, right? You see that we have 501 here. Remember, the count refused to count. It returns zero. In Excel, it will return an hash value. It will return an error sign. But here, we shall have a zero, to show us that, this is not a function for this. So the counting counts alphabets. If there's anything I don't know how I'm going to explain that, but basically, the counting counts alphabets and the count counts values. Do you understand that? So if I drag this now across the cell, it's still the same thing, anyways, right? You will soon find out how interesting it is when I start to add other backup formulas and all of that, and you see how interesting all of this is. I hope you understand that. Who asked that question? Is it Stanley? Stanley, do you understand that? I don't know. Did I make justice to this? Let me return my data to where it was. Okay, guys, it feels like I deleted it before. I know I have some people here that, when I started learning Excel that time, when I delete something, to feel like the whole world is crumbling because you don't even know how to return it. Remember, we learned in our previous class that you can kill Excel, you can undo the past, you can undo anything, you can redo whatever you want to, you can play around with data. For example, I deleted this thing before, but I use these two buttons. These two buttons, we looked at it in Excel, right? I can redo it back to where it was, I can take it back, to where we were and all of that. It just makes the work look interesting. Do you get? Okay, if you understand me up to this point, give me a thumbs up and so that I can know that you're following me. Yeah, give me a know that we are together. is very, very important to me. The feedbacks are very important to me, guys. Just so that I'm sure that you guys are hearing me. And yeah, thank you. Understand? Please ask me questions. Uh, Ask me questions, and I can attend to it. Okay. So I believe that we all understand all of these functions. I put it. There are lots more functions. I don't want to go into a whole lot again. Maybe I can. Do you want me to add more, guys? Just in the comment section if you want me to add more. But we need to move on. There's something else I want us to look at, right? There's something else I want us to look at. Okay. Other formulas are more advanced than what we have here. So look at this in the next class. Let's do something else because one of the things I want to achieve here is to teach you guys structure, how to structure your data and all of that, right? So we'll talk about reference, absolute reference. So this actually is supposed to be self-referencing because absolute reference is a part of self-referencing. So referencing means that in the event that I now have all of these formulas, for example, okay, I'm going to move this thing away. So if you're using your Google Sheets, um, like I told you guys, this is not where we're supposed to have this data at the bottom. Putting your data at the bottom is an error, right? Is an error. So we're going to move it away from the bottom. We are done. And how are we going to move it? We're going to highlight it all the way. So, I taught you guys about copy and paste and cut and paste. So if I copy this data now, for example, and I paste it somewhere else, it's going to leave the duplicate here. And because if I cut it, for example, now and paste it here, you realize that all the formulas are out. Look at that. Is out. And that is where self-referencing comes in. Okay, let me even use this to show you guys self-referencing. I think this is a better example. So you notice that when I copied this data from here and pasted it here, everything that we have done, was became useless because look at that. Why is that? Because look at he's now referencing, look at this one now, he's referencing this particular cell, this particular uh, column here, right? This one is referencing this column. All of them are referencing because when I moved it, everything also moved. So because this one was referencing this column here, when I move to this place, the longer I move it, the longer it is shifting because it will eventually come here and start counting this particular column here. Do you understand? Now, to ensure, okay, okay. So to ensure that that does not happen, right? I can copy this data from here without having all of these zeros and all of these error values, and I'll still have all my data intact no matter where I move it to. What helps is what we call cell referencing. Cell referencing helps you to lock the cells so that in the event that the data moves, so I mean, this is one of the most critical things you need in your analysis. Very critical. Every time you put a formula on something or somewhere, you must use cell referencing. You is a must because that's the only way that you can secure your data, and have, just so that you're not having errors and all of that in your data sets. Do you guys? So self-referencing is a very critical part, is a very, very critical part in data analysis. And how we are going to do that is that self-referencing is like I explained. I talked about Kuje prison. I'm using a prison as an instance, right? If you have a cell, okay, everybody here has an apartment, of course, and then you have doors. You see that padlock in your door is what is called cell-referencing. We use cell-referencing to lock up cells, yeah, to lock up cells, and we use cell referencing to lock up cells just to make sure that when we move our data, it does not. Is it going to go off and off? Okay, but the matter is not. Okay, all right. Okay, sorry guys for the distraction. So what cell referencing does, like I said, is that it locks the cells so that you don't have to. It does not move with you. So for example, if I come to where we have some here and I double click on it, so you realize that you don't necessarily, if I want to know if any cell has formula, I don't have to double click on it. If you click on the cell, you come up here and you see you see the formula sitting up here. So if I click on this cell, for example, and I want to work on this formula, I don't necessarily have to work on it here. I can come here and do the adjustments up here. Do you guys understand that? So I don't necessarily have to now come here, maybe double click on it and start working on it here. You can do that, but a better approach is that you come up here and you work on it here. So that, you know, so if I make this formula now, for example, I'm summing this column. How does cell referencing work? Because I am summing this whole column, and I'm saying to Excel or Google Sheet that if I move the data from here to somewhere else, I don't want it to break. I don't want it to reference another column. So regardless of where this data is going to go to, whether I'm going to move this data, for example, to another sheet, maybe I create another sheet and I put the data here, I still want it to move the way it is. I still want it to be referencing this column. What that means is that regardless of where you take this data to, it will still be referencing this column. It's not going to leave the column alone, right? So what I'm going to do that is that if I click on that sum and you see that our formula started from column E1. What does E1 mean? E means column, and then the one means row. So our data started from column 1. If you started from the first video, you understand what I mean. So from the top, column 1, that's where our formula started from, and then up to E501. So our data stops at E501. That's what it means. So because that happens, the first thing that will happen is that in cell referencing, you're going to lock both the rows. Is that you lock the row and leave the column, or you lock the column and leave the row, or you lock both the row and the column. If you lock both the row and the column, it's a no-go. It means that, however it is, you don't want that data to move from that particular cell. It means that you have locked it in that cell. Do you understand? That data is in no way going to leave that cell for whatsoever. So if I look at now, for those of you who followed me in the first lecture, you understand what I'm going to say. So in column E now, right? Column E, this our formula is referencing column E. And to lock column E, we are going to put a dollar sign. This dollar sign is what is called cell reference, is what is helping you to do proper cell referencing. The dollar sign is the padlock. Do you understand? So as I put that dollar sign behind the E, it means that I have automatically locked that E. And because it is from E to E, I'm also going to put my cursor at the bottom of this E too. Remember, there are two E's here. Now, the column sign in between the E and the E, this other E1 and this E501 what that does is that it's giving you the difference between where you started from and where you were. The other day I tried to explain that. So E column 1, the column sign is telling us that, okay, between E and column 1, if you know E column 1, column E row 1 started at the top, and where it is the end of that formula is in E501. So the difference between the two of them is that we have the column there to show you that it's still referencing the same column. So regardless of whether it is from E1 or E501, as far as it is still referencing E, you have to lock the two E's. So if I lock those two E's, what is going on here is that I have just locked only the column where we are working from. But right now, I haven't locked the row. Do you get? So to lock the row, I'm going to go in the middle between E and 1. I'll put another dollar sign there. So the padlock usually will come behind the value or the alphabet. So if I'm locking the row, right, I'll put the dollar sign behind the alphabet. If I'm locking the column, I'll put the dollar sign behind the value. And I'll do the same thing here again. In between where we have E and 501, I'll put a dollar sign. That's what is called absolute references. So if I click enter, for example, right? So, and look at what will happen now. If I move this data now, for example, like this, you see, it's showing me 948, 948, 945, 942, 94, the same value. If I copy it from here and paste it anywhere here, it will give me the same value. If I cut it and paste it anywhere here, it will give me the same value. If if I double click, if I double click on it, right? If I double click on it, it's going to reference the same file. Do you understand? If I double click on it, it's going to reference the same. So if I double click on it now, it's going to reference that same column where I took it from. If I double click here now, it's going to still reference it. Why? Because I have locked it, it's not going to move. Remember, if we did not lock it, okay, if I look at this average now that we did not lock, if I copy it and paste it here, look at what will happen. It has turned to error. If I double click on it, it's now referencing another column entirely. That's because I did not lock it. Are you guys understanding it? Because I'm looking for a perfect way of of explaining this, because I know that this one is a bit difficult. So, okay, great. So I'm just looking for how I can explain it better than how I am doing it. Do you get? So if you don't understand this, please put it on the comment section, because I know that it's becoming tougher. Again, it will start getting tougher from here, because we are getting into the tunnel, as it were. We are leaving the beginning. Do you understand? But don't worry, there is light at the end of the tunnel. They're on gen for that. So if you're not getting it, just let me know. If you're getting it, give me a thumbs up and all of that, so that I can move on. Maybe I'm over explaining, right? So if you're already fed up with my explanation, let's move on if you understand it. Because what I'm trying to say is that if you lock any cell, right? Now that I have locked it, I can move it to anywhere in the sheet and nothing will happen. For example, I can even move it to the next sheet and come and paste it here, right? Okay, okay, it won't do that here, because there's something else I need to do. I need to enable my interior function on the Google Sheets, and I'll show you how to do that before I can do that. But as much as it is anywhere in these sheets, I can paste it anywhere I want to paste it and nothing will happen. Your picture covered where you pasted the reference cell. Oh, serious? Okay, okay. So I'll copy it, I'll paste it here. Can you see it now? Let me take out, just to be sure that, let me make this white. I don't like to present with colored screen, right? Okay, great. Right? It's just everywhere. I just pasted it everywhere, right? If I click on it, you see that it's still referencing the same column. If I click on either of them, it's referencing the same column, right? I'm going to delete all of this. It's messy anyways. But I know you get what I'm saying. So, it's becoming interesting, like I said. I'll put it back, right? Now, now, follow me, guys. Follow me. Okay. You can also lock only the column and leave the row. And you can lock the row and leave the column, depending on what you're looking for. Do you understand? Depending on what you are looking for. Eh? Depending on what you're looking for. So if here now, we remember we locked both the row and the column, right? And we want, so that when we move it to the right, we want the columns to move, but the row should stay constant. So What that does is that, and I'll show you guys that. So I want, I will delete this too because it's okay. If I move this data, because by the time I do my sum function here, I want to be able to now move it the same way we were doing it, so that it will count this other quantity and unit price. But because I've locked it, as I drag this like this, it's not now moving because it's still referencing the age column. This one too is still referencing the age column. It's not referencing the quantity and the price because I had already locked it, right? It's not going to work. But to ensure that this is also working, right? What I will do is that I'm just going to lock only the row and take out the column. I'll take out the column, the one that is behind the E. Behind the E, I'll take it out. And then I will drag the formula again. You see, it's now referencing this column. This one too is now referencing this column. But then let me delete the downside. So the downside to this one is that because I locked only the column, I can only take it the right or to the left, and then it will remain constant. If I try to take it downwards, wahala go dey because I did not lock. Do you understand? So if I, for example, now this data that is here now, if I take it down, right? Did I even lock? Okay, sorry guys. I locked the, so I'll lock the row and leave the column. Sorry. So you take out the so here. Okay. My apologies. So you take out the one behind the value and leave the dollar sign behind the alphabet, right? So if I drag it downwards, what that does is that, and I'll show you guys, that is very, very important. That is very, very important, guys. Uh, who is saying something here? I think I'm the picture covered. Okay. What we go turn solar. We go turn solar panel with artificial sun. Well, what does that mean, Stanley? Okay, okay. So, so you notice something, right? If I have these data sets here, remember we locked both the column and the row, right? And then we came back, we say, okay, right, let's just lock only the row and leave the columns, right? So we now locked only the row and left the columns. What that will mean is that if peradventure I copy this my data, or maybe I drag it downwards, now it will still reference this column, but you notice that this one is referencing E1 to E500 and 501. But because I dragged it down, this one is now referencing E2 to E502. So as much as I keep dragging it, it just keeps following me. This one will now reference E10 to E510. So it just keeps going. But to ensure that does not happen, is that you absolutely lock everything. If you lock everything here, right, regardless of where you move the data to, whether you are taking it down, it just gives you the same value. That will ensure that give accurate reporting. So the cell referencing is going to help us a lot when we go to the advanced formula. When we start looking at the sum ifs and start writing the that we're going to do, right? With all of this. I'm just basics, right? If you understand it now properly, when we get to the bigger formulas, it will be easy for you. There are things that we're going to be using as we are moving on. So that's all for cell referencing. If you don't understand again, please put it in the comment section so that I can. I need to know, right? I need to know. Okay. If you get everything that I have just said, give me a thumbs up on the comment section, and then we can move from here. We're going to do something else. I told you guys that this is not where your data is supposed to be. Your data is not supposed to be at the bottom of your data set. So for proper analysis, we are going to move this data from here completely, right? Your data should be, your summary data should always be on another sheet. That was why I created that sheet called dashboard, right? But because of what we are going to do tonight, we're not going to move it to the dashboard sheet already. So if you have your Excel sheet, you have your whatever. So highlight this whole from sum down to absolute reference, cut it, Control X. So if I highlight it, I taught you guys how to cut. So if I highlight it and I right click, I'll click on cut, right? Come at the top of your page here, hmm? Somewhere around here, and paste it. This is where your summary should be. So you see that because I use cuts, I've taken it completely out of the bottom. So we don't have anything here to work with. Do you understand? So I'll delete all of this. We don't need all of this again. We don't need all of this. And the next thing I'm going to show you guys is the importance of moving your data to this upside where I have moved it to. Right? Now, now. Now we're going to arrange this data. Of course, this one, right and left, the enter, oh my god, while I don't base, please, how do we undo the cell referencing? Okay, this, I did my mistake. Now I'm unable to copy without copying the same thing. Next, I don't quite understand that. You're able to copy without copying the same thing. I have logged my own data reference. So, please, can you explain the cell reference? People of God. Okay, have you all moved your data to the right hand side of your data sheets? Please tell me. I think I'm not. Have you moved your data to the right hand side of the data sheets? Have you taken it from the bottom? Please take your data from the bottom, and then we can explain the cell reference in there. I know that's quite difficult, so that's why I'm taking the data to the right hand side so that you can further explain, you can further understand it better. Like if I put my cursor on sum, it will all copy sum. Oh, okay. So watch me again. I'm going to take that again. I don't understand, sir. Please. Who else does not understand? I know this one is going to cause problem. Juliet, do you understand? Aisha, okay. I understand that, that's why I've been delaying the cell reference because I know that when we get here now, we have begun now. This is where we have begun. People of God. I laid a good foundation. Now we have begun data analysis, right? And it's going to get tougher from here, really, really tougher from here. But I'm going to try my best to take it one step at a time and make sure that everybody understands it, before we get off any call. Okay, okay. Like if I put my cursor on some, it will all copy some. Okay. So let me go again. Have you guys moved your data to the top right hand side? I need to know. That's where I need to begin from, guys. Have you all moved your data to the top right hand side? Please reach out to the people that are not here to join the call. It's becoming tougher. If you have to meet, okay. I thank God that it's a recorded session so people can, you know, I expected to have up to 50% in this call today. Even though I understand the short notice and all of that. But we should have more people on Saturday and then I can go through it again. So, but yeah, talk to me. I need to see the feedback. Have you guys moved your data to the right hand side of the sheet? Let's start from there. Let's start from there. I'm waiting for your feedback. I need to be sure that you guys are with me. You guys are following. Thank you, Jesus. Okay. Great. Okay, okay, okay. Shamaka, that's what you said. I said, look at my screen. I said, put your cursor. Okay, let me undo mine. Let's do it together. Look at my screen. Look at my screen. I'm going to undo it and take it back to where I came from. So if you're here, for example, where I am right now, uh, I was trying to undo it. Okay, okay, Esther. Okay, okay, it's fine. So I said, put your cursor on from the sum, highlight everything. So let me bold in my table so that you know what I'm saying. So I just colored mine. You see this whole box where I just colored, eh? From sum to absolute reference. Copy it. Do you know how to copy? Hold your mouse, put it on sum, and drag it. Click here where you have sum. Click there and hold. Click and hold, then drag it, right? Drag it till the end of the data to cover both the row and the column. Have you done that, people of God? You have. Great. If you have done that, right click on your laptop, or if you are using mouse, right click on it and click on cut, 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 cut. This one that look like scissors. Click on it, cut it. Have you also done that? Please confirm that you have done that. So click on it, cut it, and then right move to the end, to the beginning of the page, up here by the right hand side, and right click again and click on paste. Does that make sense now? Is it okay now, Esther Stanley? Is it okay now? Is it okay? Okay, okay. So I believe that it's only Esther and Stanley that have that issue. The rest of the guys, are you following me? Yes. So I will shift it a little bit down. So the next thing that I want to do, okay, the next thing that we want to do right now is to now categorize it. So you know why I said that we should move it up. You can't do your analysis at the bottom. Ah, Juliet, Juliet, what is it? Juliet, what's the problem again? You've not moved it. Juliet, what's holding you? Good news, okay. I want to be sure that everybody is in short. As a matter of fact, I think I've been running. So let's do a class now, right? I'm with you. So I want to be sure that everybody is following me, right? Have you done what I have done? I've done mine since, sir. Great. Esther, what's up? Okay, Esther says she has. Is that correct? Okay. Bunnies have done that. Julie, you said no, sir. Have you done that? Yeah, I have. Great. Who else is talked? Please speak fast so that we can move. Okay, I'm going to take out this my. Okay, so you can join me, right? Circle it so that it looks like a table, right? Do the same thing I did here. Highlight it. Come to this place where we have borders. You see borders here, borders here. Click on it, right? You see where we have borderline. Click on the borderline and make it bold. Click on this bold, the one that is bolder, and then click on this outer borders. Why do I feel like you are lost? Then click on this outer border. When you do that, you're going to have the same circle I have here. Do you understand that? I can sense in my spirit that some people are lost. I don't want you to be lost, people of God. Is that okay? Are we good? Can I move on? Can we move? Guys, can I move? I probably think that the network is delaying my conversation. Okay, it's fine. Okay. So now that you have moved it to the top of your page, right? Let's name them. So, okay, great. Great, great. Thank you. So come to the table where you have your functions, right? Call these functions, right? Call here age, um, we had quantity, and then we had unit price. Okay, thank you. We had unit price. So I'm going to put the border again. I'm going to put a lighter border. So just learn how to play with the borders anyways. So I'm going to delete all of these that I have done, and I'm going to start again. And this is so that I can explain what cell referencing, how cell referencing works here. Do you understand? So the calculation that we're going to do now, we further explain what cell referencing is all about, and then we can move on. Does that make sense now? Okay. So let's say that we want to sum for, okay, let's say that we want to sum for age. So we have this data here, and I'll color the top header. You know, I told you guys that every time you have to color the top header just so that you can differentiate between, the headers and the. I'm catching up now. Julie, well done. That's great. So if you've not done your data the way I have done mine, please go ahead and do yours. And if I'm too fast, please kindly let me know so that I can, I can put it, I can put a break on it. I don't want to be too fast so that you don't get what we are doing. So we have taken our data from the bottom and we have taken it to the left hand side. We are going to calculate these functions all over again. That's what I want us to do now. Great. So to get the sum for age, for example, I have this data here. This data was presented to us, and then they said that we should get the total age, get the quantity, get the total quantity, and get the total unit price, as well as the average age, the average quantity, and the average unit price. And we're going to use the absolute the cell referencing to do that. Because when you have your data at the side of your data set like this, it's difficult for you to just you can't just put a sum and then drag and then it just works. Because I told you guys, it's not every time that you have to be. For example, now I want to get the sum of age. If I do the sum of age, I come to age. So look at this now. In this case now that we have our table by the side, I'm not going to come here and start dragging to the floor like we did before, right? Remember, also trying to learn is that we are trying to learn how to be fast. We are trying to learn how to be fast and accurate. And what ensures that you are fast and accurate, one of them is cell referencing, right? So now that I have put a sum on age now, and our data is by the left, if I come to column E now, I want to know the total sum of age. I'm not going to click and drag. Rather, I'm going to put my cursor at the top right where I have the column name. For example, where I have E, right? If I click on it's going to automatically highlight that whole column for me from top to bottom. And that explains why you cannot afford to use formulas at the end of your data, because what that will do is that if you had already summed your age at the end, at the bottom of this data, now that I'm going to sum it like this now, it's going to sum both the total, right? And I'm going to be having, very bogus numbers, and it's not going to be adding up because I had already put a sum at the bottom of the page. So that is why you cannot do any analysis at the bottom of your page. If you're working already and you are doing that, you need to stop. Don't do any analysis at the bottom of your page. Always do your analysis at the right hand side of your page. So you can forget and just put a sum there and all of that and go and it, and then it just looks very messy. So again, don't ever do your analysis at the bottom of any data set. Do it at the right hand side of the data set. That gives you a clean, that gives you, I mean, it makes your work very, very, very clean and just helps you to avoid a lot of errors at the end of the day. So if I put my cursor on E and I click on E and I click enter, right, it's just going to work that way. And for example, and I click on, it just moves. Do you get? But because I'm not going to imagine that I have a lot of sum to do here and I have a lot of calculation to do here, and I'm just every time calculate here sum, when I go to the next one, I can't be doing that. That's where the absolute referencing comes in. Now that I've calculated for this sum, I need to be able to drag it to the left hand, right? But you notice that as I dragged it, because it's already in columns and all of that. But if I'm going to turn this data upside down, this might not really explain what our cell referencing. So I'm going to turn the data upside down. How am I going to do that? You need to learn this one too, right? If I highlight the whole cell, right, and I come down here, I'll paste it as transpose. We're talking about different ways of pasting. So if I paste it as transpose, I can move what is on the row to the column, and I'll move what is on the column to the row. Because on a normal day, maybe what I will do is that maybe I will start, maybe carry some and put here. Maybe a typical person, maybe cut here, put average here, cut mean, put it here, so that I can now arrange it, in this other order, right? Maybe cut quantity, put it here. That will take a lot of time. I'm not going to do that. So let me undo it. So to quickly do that, if you highlight the whole table and cut it, I'll just come here and use the transpose. So if you go transpose, it's going to automatically transpose it upside. Do you understand? So you realize that this age, quantity, and unit price that was that was that was in a row has now become a column. And these ones that were in column has now become, you know, is now a row. Do you get? So we're going to do that. So I'm going to delete this table up here, right? I'm going to take that off so that I'm just looking for a way I can explain cell referencing properly. We have not done anything differently. What we have done is that we have just turned it upside down. And if you have stopped, we'll pray for you. Okay. So, of course, I'll remove. So, the average, we have the mean, we have the max, we have the count, right? So, what I want to do is to know the sum of age, the average of age, the mean of age, the max of age, the count of age, and the count of age, right? So, and I want to be able to do that for quantity and unit price. So, if I sum the age, for example, equals to sum, click on E. Remember we say click on E. And age is 19,425, right? And of course, I'll come and do the for average equals to what's the average of age, for example. I'll click on average and then I'll do same. The average is 338.85, right? So I expect that I should just click on it and drag it down so that it will do the same for quantity and unit price. But you realize that nothing happened. So I dragged it down and it's still counting, it's still referencing the column E, right? It's still referencing column E instead of referencing column F. Not just that it's referencing column E. So it's still referencing column F. And if I do that for average, you see that it's counting the same thing here. So if I do that for average, okay, I'll just drag an average. So I'll do same for mean. You see that it's showing us the same numbers, and I'll show you why. The mean function. Okay, so what I have done here, right, is such that, okay, and I'll just let me do something for you guys. So that I think this will even better help me explain it better. So I'll take for the sum, for example, so equals to sum, I'll sum the quantity, and then equals to sum, I'll sum the unit price. Okay, so let's say that we have the sum of the age, we have the sum of the quantity, and we have the sum of the unit price, right? And you don't want to, I mean, what you don't want to do is just to continue, maybe you get to average and then you continue going up and down and all of that. What I will do is to just drag all of this and fill in here. But you see that when I dragged it, for example, if I click on average, right? The average of age is now averaging quantity. If I click on the average of quantity, right, is averaging unit price. And if I now click on the average of unit price, is now averaging column H. If I go to mean, I click on it. If I go to mean and click on mean, you see that mean is average is counting column G. The mean of age is counting column G instead of counting column E. If I do same with sum is now summing, with marks rather. Marks is now masking column H, right? And not column E. So you see that because I moved everything, it's just moving. That's because we did not apply absolute reference. Sir, mine is not showing though. Like recap, what do you say, please? The way this our class is going, I don't think we'll be finishing the curriculum in 3 weeks. Guys, am I making sense in any way? I don't know. I'm trying so hard to see how I can break this down, to how you can really understand this. So what I'm trying to say in essence is that Stanley, have you turned this upside down? Is your all of you, is your table like this? Is your table the way my table is? Is your table the way my table is? Let's start from there. Is your table the way my table is? If your table is the way my table is, right? First of all, sum age, reference it to column E. I mean, if you're doing the practical, you get me better. So reference your age to column E and then come to quantity, sum the quantity too, right? Which is column F. And then come to price, sum the price, which is column G. Have you guys gotten to that point? Great. If you have done that, right, the next thing we need to do is that we want to be able to move this data like this now to the left right hand side, so that what we just need to do will just be likely to, you know, change the average, the sum to average, for example, right? Without necessarily going back to our table to go and start referencing the table. Do you get? I'll delete it again. So, and I'm going to include the referencing just so that you understand me better, right? And if this table pattern is not working for you guys, we can go back to the previous table pattern. I think that can work. Since you already understand that table pattern, let me go back to the other table pattern so that you can understand it better again. Let me see if I can make justice to it. I'll copy it again and I'll paste it as transpose, right? I think that is why some of you are lost. So let's go again. Let's go again. If you understand the whole cell referencing and all of that, it's going to help us in our previous classes, in subsequent classes. That is why I'm taking my time to make sure that you understand this the way that I am, doing it. I want you to be able to understand, because when we get into, writing a lot of if formulas and all of that, we're going to need a lot of referencing. And if you don't know how to use cell referencing now, it's going to affect you a lot when we get to that side. Do you guys understand that? So you mean this particular transpose is better? This one I'm working with, or the other one? This one I just did, Stanley. This our original table is better, right? Okay, so let me see if I can make justice. Let me see if I can make justice to it. Let me see if I can make justice to it. Right? Okay. Okay. If this transpose is better, then let's work with this. Let's work with this then. Okay. So I'm saying that I have this table here, right? And I have the sum, average. For example, I was told to look for the sum, average, mean, max, count, and count A in this data, right? Now, what I want to do is to be able to look for the sum of age, the sum of quantity, the sum of unit price, as well as the average of age, the average of quantity, the average of unit price, as well as the mean of age, the mean of quantity, the mean of unit price, right? So, how, just to ensure that I'm not typing the formulas every time I get to every cell, right? I'm going to have to use cell referencing to be able to, so that I can just you put the formula in one cell and then you can drag it to the other cell, and it is not affected. Do you understand? So what we are going to do is that, so for example, if I sum the age, like I said, if I sum the age, the total age we have is 19425, right? Now, If I drag it to the left, it's going to automatically sum for quantity and unit price, and that makes a lot of sense, right? So if I drag it down, somebody said the other one. I'm kind of quite confused. Is it, you mean the one you just deleted? More preferably. Okay. Do you guys also, I mean, Stanley is saying that the one I just deleted is most preferred than the one I'm working with. Is that correct? Is that correct, guys? Oh, really? Okay. I probably have to go back if that's the case. If that helps you understand it better. This one, right? Okay, okay, okay. I'm here. I'm here. I came back to it. I came back to it. So this does not necessarily do justice to it because we have the functions here and we literally have to be. I just want to show you guys that if we move a cell from one cell to the other, it could affect our data. However, we'll come up with a better example and all of that. But again, I want, because I'm speaking to this particular set of formulas, I want to be able to, I'm trying to make sense of it. Because, for example, we'll get to a better example, and when we get there, you understand exactly why, but because this is even more difficult to get it. And if you get it the way that I'm doing it, right, it's not going to be difficult when we get to where we're going to be writing if statements and all of that. Do you get? So just follow me. So I'm saying that I summed the age here, fine, right? And here I summed the quantity, and here I summed the price, right? Now, what you will notice is that if I move, okay, okay, you guys follow me, follow me. Now that I have summed the, remember, our sum is coming from column E, right? And I expect that if I drag, because our column E is age, don't forget, our column E is age, and then we have summed column E. We want to also look for the average of column E. I think that's better said. We want to also look for the mean of column E, the max of column E, the count of column E, and the counter of column E. All of this is supposed to come from column E, right? So if I drag this button now to automatically fill all of this, you notice that instead of this average referencing column E is referencing column F. Instead of the mean referencing column E is referencing column G. Because the more I drag it, max is now referencing column H. Do you get? Count is now referencing column I, and then counter is referencing column J. Meanwhile, what we want to get is the average of column E, right? The mean of column E, and all of that. But when we now moved, drag our data, you see that everything is just moving and referencing whatever they want to reference. Does that make sense now? I think this is a better example I just gave. This will help you understand it better, right? But to ensure that regardless of wherever we move it to, it does not how do I call it, in any way change the cell referencing. What we are going to do is that we want to lock that column. We will lock the column and leave the row. So to lock that particular column, remember we are referencing that particular column. Here now, we are not even, we did not even reference any row. We'll get to where we'll start talking about rows and all of that. So to make sure, ensure that if I drag it to look for average, mean, mass, count, and counting, it does not move to the other columns with me. Is that I'm going to lock that particular column. So that column E, from the beginning of column E, I'll put a dollar sign. To put a dollar sign on your keyboard, you hold shift and hold 4. Shift 4, shift 4. Or you press the F4 function in your computer. And then I'll also come at the beginning of this E2, right? And put a dollar sign. So when I do that, I've automatically locked that column. So regardless of where I move this data to, so if I now move it, for example, to this side, eh, you see that all of it is now referencing that column E. The only thing I now need to do is to come to the beginning of the formula and change the sum to average, right? Since it is average I'm looking for in that place. Here, I'll change the sum to mean. You know, here, I'll change the sum to max. But you see, because I dragged it, all of that is still referencing column E. So, like I said to you guys, this is not the perfect data for this kind of example. But, beyond the data, I just want you guys to understand the whole idea of locking cells and making sure that they don't move with you. Because when we get into the real stuff, we're going to be doing a lot of locking. If I say lock column, this one, lock, how do I call it? Lock a particular cell, lock a particular row. I want you guys to already be experts in cell referencing, so that if I say lock so, you're not going to be asking me what do you mean and all of that. So the idea behind this is just to prove to you that if I lock a particular, so for example now, if we get to quantity, remember I summed quantity and this quantity is calling from column F, not E this time. And if I want to look for the average and mean and max of the, and if I drag it to the end, for example, right? If I drag it to the end, is now going to start referencing other columns because I've not locked it. So for example now, this mean now is now referencing column H. Meanwhile, what we are looking for is column F, and column F is quantity. So we are looking for quantity, mean of quantity. We are also looking for max of quantity. But because we did not lock it, our max is now on column I. And column I is an alphabet. You can't use max on an alphabet, right? So to ensure that if I move this data, nothing moves with me, I need to come here and lock the column F back and front. And then I drag it to wherever I want to drag it to. Now you notice that the numbers are the same because it is all referencing. So it is now me that will now come and change whether I want to use an average, you know, if this is mean, I'll change it to mean or whatever it is. Do you guys understand it now? Is this example better? Does it feel difficult? Guys, Hello, guys. Okay, I'll take on another example and then, yeah. Okay, I'll take on another example so that you guys understand me. For example, if we have this age, so in this data set now, we are asked to look for the age. Great. So we are asked to look for region. So for example now, region, what is the count of age for each of this region? Do you understand? Right? Or how many female and how many male do we have in southeast? So here in column D, we have the type of, the type of gender, male and female. Do you get? And here in column I, we have region, south, north, central, and all of that. Now, somebody is asking you, we want to know what is the count of females and males in all of these regions, for example, right? How are we going to do that? We're going to use a formula called, let me even, this is also going to help you as we're moving. This is kind of a way of also sorting your data. I'm going to use a formula called unique. Don't worry about that. We'll look at it later. So unique is just helping me to bring out all the south, filter out, for example, all the south and all of that. So now that I have them here, I'll do that again for um, the gender. How many genders do we have there? We have two genders, for example. So I'm going to arrange this data in a way that will also help us, get to what we are looking for. Forget about the formula. If you get it, that's a bonus for you. But I didn't teach it. We'll get to that, right? So now I need to be able to now arrange my data this way because the question that was asked is that I should provide how many male are in south south and how many female are in south south. How many male are in north central and how many female are in north central. So again, we're going to use the count function. This kind of thing now we use the count function, right? Or let me make it even more, a little bit more, advanced. So we want to know the quantity of products each of these gender is buying, right? What is the quantity of products males in south south are buying, and what is the quantity of products that females in south south are also buying? What is the quantity of products males are buying in north central, and what is the quantity of products female are buying in north central? Do you get? Now, for me to get this kind of data now, I will use a sum function. So equals to sum. Oh, you see, people of God, this will require a little bit of an if statement. And if I continue with this now, but I'm just going to give you guys a clue of what it is. Of course, I'm speaking to self-referencing, so I'm not going to teach it as this is supposed to be for the next class, but I'm just going to. So to get this kind of data now, I'll use a sum if function, or better still, let me count. That is, you will understand that better. So I'll use a count. There's something they call count if, which is not part of what I have given to you guys. So count ifs, right? So I want to count how many females, for example, right? How many males? So it is when you start using if functions that self-referencing becomes very, very critical. Do you get? Self-referencing becomes very, very critical. I did not explain that function because don't worry about that. I'm just using it to explain cell referencing, right? Now, this is a better way of, if you don't understand it before, you're going to understand it perfectly. We have, this is 9:56. Our time is already almost up. So, what I have done here is that I've been able to get, so for South males, we have 47. But you realize that if I drag it to the left, it's going to give me 0. Why? Now, cell referencing comes in when you start using if functions. In all of this sum and average and all of that, you don't necessarily need cell referencing, but you just need it in this basic, these are basic functions. In these basic functions, what you need is absolute cell referencing so that you lock up the cell. If you have to copy it somewhere and all of that, it can help. But when you are now working with if statements and all of that, right? There's something we call if statements in Excel or Google Sheets. If you're working with if statements, every statement must come with a cell reference. Because now that I have calculated for South, so I'm saying that males in South are 47. So I'm expecting to drag it to this side so that it can tell me female. But you see that as I now dragged it to female, now it's showing me 0 because female is now referencing column J, which is laptop and desktop. And here is referencing column E instead of referencing column D. So to ensure that that does not happen, as soon as I finish with my mail here, right, what I need to do is to lock up all the columns. So I lock up column D, beginning to beginning, right? Now, you notice that I lock up column D. I've not taught you guys about if function, so it might be difficult for you to understand. Just don't follow. But I'm just going to lock up all the cells. You know, in our next class, we are going to go deeper. That's when we start talking about if functions. But I don't want us to get to the next class and we are struggling with cell referencing. That's why it looks like I'm trying to drive this one into you so that by next week we are going to be doing a lot of some functions, some ifs, and all of that, some level of advance. You're going to go advanced, really, a little bit of advanced. So you're going to need a lot of cell referencing. That's why I'm taking my time to make sure that you understand it, right? So I'm also going to lock. I'm going to lock everything here, literally everything from beginning to beginning, you know, and then uh, here, yeah. So because I've now locked it, if I move it now, okay, what is this still referencing? This is still referencing mail. That means I eventually locked the mail column. So I'm going to release this. So the truth about the matter is, what again am I locking? Uh, okay, column Q. Okay, okay. So you see, the truth about the matter is, when we get to, I don't know what's going on here. Q, it's okay. Okay. Yeah. So now that I've succeeded in locking all the cells, if I drag it, for example, to the end, it's going to just automatically calculate for north central, southeast, southwest, southeast, and northwest. So because I have done justice to this first row here, right? I'm not going to have to calculate for each of these columns and all of that. What I just need to do is to get this one accurate. As soon as I'm done with that, I just have to drag it down here, and it's going to automatically fill for both all the regions, for both males and both females, right? I know that I did not explain that formula, but again, that's something that we're supposed to look at next week. I'm just looking for a way that can really, really help you understand what cell referencing is all about. Why do I feel like today our class is very serious? You know, maybe because it's getting tougher. You know, so do you guys really understand this? I think our time is really up, and our time is really up. We are 2 minutes into our time. We're supposed to close already. Did I make justice to it, or you know, do you guys want us to still do like a 1 hour catch up like we used to do? On Wednesday, on Thursday rather, maybe a 1 hour catch up on Thursday, and we can look at it again because I want you guys to get it before the next class. Okay, okay. We can do like a 1 hour catch up. We will agree if even if it's tomorrow or on Thursday, whichever any of those days, and then you know, so that you guys can speak. I want you guys to speak. It's becoming tough now that you are typing. Is I know it's quite uncomfortable to you for you because some people just feel like unmuting and just speaking. So we can do a 1 hour catch up, and so that you can really understand what I'm trying to explain. I feel like a lot of people have not understood this, anyways. So, but we need to end it there for tonight. Um, I'm not going to give any assignments until after the catch up, right? I'll I would try my best to make a proper data arrangement that can further help us understand what the cell referencing is all about. I think that can fly. That would be better. So, are we good, guys? Are we good? Maybe we can just call it a day here and we'll do a catch up. Okay, let's do a 1 hour catch up tomorrow. Tomorrow. I'll put a poll. I know the if function is going to be confusing, right? Yes, you have done well, sir. I will advise us to go and learn these things when they are free before joining the next class. Okay, okay. So you can reward the video and then we can do. I feel like some people want to talk to me, right? Okay, so let's do on Thursday. Let's do a 1 hour catch up on Thursday on Google Meet, not how do I call it? Not YouTube, so that people can talk to me, right? And I can break it down a little bit further. I tried my best to explain, but the first data I use is is not quite the kind of data to use for that. But I tried my best. Anyway, I didn't want to confuse you guys with a lot of data. But on Wednesday, I mean on Thursday, I'll just use like 30 minutes share to break it down, you know, and then we can move from there. I want us before the Saturday class we would have been able to get the cell referencing so that we can move. We can move. There's a lot more we need to cover. The sum if, the count if, the you know pivot tables and all of that. We need to be able to cover all of that this week. So that by next week we start looking at trim functions and all of that. So it's quite large, but God will help us to finish it. Okay. Somebody say let's do it tomorrow. So I'll put a poll on the group. Oh yeah. I understand you, Esther, so that I can still be fresh. I understand you. So I'll put a poll on the group. You guys should work on the poll. If you're going to do it tomorrow or Thursday, just majority carries the vote. I know Aisha will say tomorrow. So yeah, okay. So thank you guys. I can open the group this evening just so that to allow for a few comments. Let's deliberate it on the group. Let's deliberate it on the group. Let's talk about this on the group. If you want Thursday, if you want, because this absolute reference, I feel like you guys don't understand this, and I feel so far. I feel like some people need to ask me questions directly, talk to me. I need to see your face and all of that. That way you understand it better. You know. So let's make sure we close out on the absolute reference. I knew that it was going to give us tough time. That's why I took it last. So let's close out on the absolute reference tomorrow, or Wednesday, whichever day we choose. I'll open the group. Let's continue the conversation there, and then whichever one it is, and then we'll select the day, and then we'll move on. So thank you, everyone, and I'm just going to end the live stream already. So if you can rewatch it, please rewatch it. Go ahead and rewatch it. If you can rewatch, go ahead and rewatch it and all of that. And while you're waiting for me for tomorrow, thank you guys, and do have a great night. Excuse me.